Hey, it's Gail here. In this video, I'm going to show how to make a snowflake in Google Drawing. So if you haven't watched lesson 1, I highly suggest watching it and creating a folder in your Google Drive that's for snowflake projects only, because there's so much that you can do with this design and you might want to use it later. You can kind of create it like a clip art piece, and you can add it to pieces as you move along, combine it with other drawings. Also, you can do quite a variety of things with values and things to make it show up differently. So this is going to be the beginning one, and then I'm going to create more videos to show you how to make it more complex using the same drawing that we create today. So I have this pie up here, and if you would like to use this pie too, just look down in the description. I'm going to share it with you, and you can load it into your Snowflake folder. So we're going to get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we want to use a polysymmetrical design here in the middle. So polysymmetrical means that it's symmetrical on more than one side. Symmetry is one side looks like the other. So we want it to be symmetrical in all of these areas. So I'm going up to shapes, and I'm going to choose the shape, the sun shape right here, and I'm going to hold down the shift button when I pull out the shape, so that way it maintains its proportions and it's completely round. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to line it up here in the center, and one thing you can do to help you line this up is you can add rulers, and you can also add some guidelines. So you want to go to view and make sure there's a check mark next to ruler right here. Also go down to guides right here, and where it says show guides, we want to click on this, and when I go back to here, you can see that there's a check mark next to that. So that's what we want. And I'm going to line this up here in the center first and see if I can find that. Let me move this out of the way real quick so we can line it up and make sure it's lined up there. Okay, that looks good. And now I'm going to take this shape, and I think I want to make it a little bit shorter, so I'm going to hold down the shift key again and pull on one of the corners. I'm just going to push it in a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, so maybe about that size right there. And I'm going to line it up there in the middle. So I have the red line that shows up this direction as well as this direction to kind of make sure that lines up. And this is going to be our anchor point, which means that we're only going to create one line, and we're going to duplicate them for all of the other lines, and we're going to match it up to this one in the center, even though it might not match up completely. So I'm just making sure that that red line's there, and now for some reason I need to line it up on the center line too, so I'm going to push this over. And it's a really good idea to take your time on this part, because this will set up the rest of your drawings. So I have that. I'm going to make this white, so I'm going to click back on the shape again. I'm going up to the fill color right here, and I'm going to choose white all the way to the right there. I'm also going to change the black outline to a light gray, so I'm going to the border color. It's the one with the pencil next to the fill color, and I'm going to choose a middle gray here. I think I'll choose this one right here, and that looks pretty good. And I'll show you how you can do more with that in a little bit. So now that I have that shape, I'm going to start to add more shapes, and I'm just going to fill out one line. So all the shapes we use, you want to make sure that they show symmetry. So we can add symmetry like hearts, because if you split that down the center, that works. Stars, diamonds, squares, circles, anything that you can break in half that's symmetrical. Later on, I'll probably do another one showing how you can combine things that are not symmetrical. But for this video, I'm going to keep it kind of simple. So I have this one here. I'm going back to shapes, and the next shape I'm going to find is this one right here. It's a double square, and I'm going to hold down the shift key when I pull it out, so that way it's more even throughout. And I think I'm going to keep the shape probably about like this. And I'm also going to change that color inside to white. And I'm going to change my border line over here to a middle gray, like so. and this looks pretty good. I'm going to bring it over, and I want to match up the two corners on the ends here on the black line. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, and this one's going to be a little bit more time consuming, or this video will be, just because I have to get this perfect. So I accidentally moved this line right here that I did not want to move, so I'm going to undo. So it goes back to where it was before. And now I'm going to play around with the shape again right here and see if I can get that up in the middle there. So that looks pretty good on that one, but it looks like I need to move this a little bit more to the right. And it's going to be a little finicky. If you find that it's really hard to line it up, one thing you might need to do is go to View and go down to where it says Snap To. And I like to have grid and guides off for this, so I have more leeway on how much it jumps. So I'm going to choose this one right here. I'm going to add this, go back here again and see if that helps me get the angle I want. I still need to go a little bit more there. And it's being really finicky right now, but okay, it's pretty close, but it's not quite where I want it to be. Okay, and I think that did move a little bit, and we're going to call that pretty good. Although if I were doing this for a client or something, I'd want to make sure that's even more rounded. And it looks like it's closer to this edge than this edge right here. So I also need to come back to this design and see if there's anything I can do there. I'm not going to worry about too much because I'm going to fill it in later on, and it just might be that these are at a different angle. So I just want to make sure it's in the center. So I'm going to go back and forth here again. And so it is not lining up like I had hoped. So it's right there, and that one's on there. And I think I'm going to keep it like that. I'm just going to press this one up underneath there a little bit so it's more connected. And I'll show you how to use casting shadows in a little bit too. So I have this one. I'm going to select this one, and this time I'm going to either choose Control+D on most computers, but if you're using an Apple, you want to press down on Command+D. So I'm finding it on the keyboard, Command, and then press +D, and I just duplicated the shape, and I'm going to move this one over a little bit and kind of figure out how I want that to look, and that looks pretty good right there actually. So I can make little designs and stuff like this. The next thing I can do is I'm actually going to take this shape, I'm going to duplicate it one more time. So Command+D or Control+D. And this time I'm going to make it a little bit larger for the end. So I'm just going to pull on one corner right here, make it a little bit bigger, like so. And I'm going to bring that all the way down to here and kind of match it up on the corner there. And then I'm going to find something else to fill in the middle here. So over here I used the star, so I will show how I did that. Go to Shapes. I'm going down to where the heart is over here. I'm going to hold down the Shift button and pull this out. And for me, I like the heart to be a little bit wider. So I'm actually going to pull it out a little bit and not hold down the Shift button anymore. And maybe fill it in like so. And actually I'm going to make this a little shorter because this one's going to go inside that square I just created. And I think that shape looks pretty good. So I'm going to change this to white just so it's easier for me to see. And I'm going to change that color to middle gray right here. And I'm going to rotate it and eventually move it down to here. And I accidentally moved this piece right here, so I want to send that back to where it was. I'm going to do this a little bit right here. Then I'm going to bring this down. And I think what I'm going to do is line it up here first. So that way I have a little bit more control over it. Maybe I can get that circle on the line there. And that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but maybe I went a little too far. Let me get back there. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to move it down, and I'm going to place it inside the shape here. And like so. And I think I'll keep it like that. I just want to fill in this little side right here so that it's more even on each side. And that looks pretty good. So the next shape I'm going to use is the star. So I'm going back to the shapes again. And this time, instead of going to shapes, I'm going down to callouts. And you can find the 5-pointed star right here. I'm going to hold down the shift button, click and drag out a shape. And then I'm going to bring this over and I'm going to see how I want this to line up. And again, I'm going to take this up to the top here so that way I can make sure it's lined up well. And wow, that was pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to move this over like so. And then we're almost there. Okay, I still want to get that a little bit better if I can. It's so finicky. So that looks pretty good. Just a little bit more if I can. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that unless it's really large, but that looks really good right there. So I'm going to take this one, bring it down, and I'm going to have an overlap in the center, but I want it to kind of connect with that point on the end there. And it looks like I need to move this over a little bit. And I'm going to move it over a little bit more right here. Okay, and almost there. Okay, cool. That's it. So I'm choosing white again. Now there is another way I could do this. I don't have to choose making all of these white at the same time. I could group them all together and change them all to the same color, but for me it was just easier to do it this way. And then I'm going to change the outline, the border color to like a middle gray there. And that's pretty much it for the beginning part of our snowflake. So now what we're going to do is group all of these together. I think I will keep this here just in case I need it later on. And it's going to be covered up in a little bit, but we can always bring it to the foreground. So I'm going to press down Shift on my keyboard. And then I'm pressing on the sun shape. And then I'm going to press on these squares. I'm going to press on the star, the rectangle, and the heart right here. And I'm going up to Arrange, and I'm going down to group them together like so. And now if I move it, I can see that I selected all of them, so that's good. So just to get it back to where I had it, I'm going to undo, and we have it there. Now I'm going to press Control plus D or Command plus D on the keyboard, and I'm going to, after I selected this one, what I'm going to do is go to Arrange. This time we're going down to Rotate, and I'm going to flip it vertically, like so. Now when I have this shape here, I'm going to come up and start to line it up on this design up here. We'll see how that matches up. And that matched up really well right there. Okay, and that looks pretty good. That's a little bit off, but overall still pretty good. Okay, and then the next one I'm going to create is this one right here. So I'm going to click this one. I'm going to hit, oops, I hit that too many times. Command plus D or Control plus D. And if you hold down too long, you get more of these. And then this one, I'm actually going to rotate myself by choosing this tool right here. And that little circle is your rotation tool. And I'm going to see if I can match it up like so. And of course I went too far, so I'll get there in a minute. So I'm just going to start to get it more horizontal, and then I'll start to play around with it. Okay, getting closer. Okay, so now that I bring this down, this is where the angle's difference. Oh, actually it's pretty good there. So maybe we can get it lined up with that angle. So, and I don't know if I can see that well enough to line it up, but we'll see if we can get that. And it's going to be a little bit off there, but this is lined up here, so that looks pretty good overall. We're going past the line a little bit there, but that's absolutely fine. So now that I have these parts, I see that it isn't completely lined up here. I'm going to see if I can get that up there on that circle a little bit more. And maybe I do need to bring that down just a tad bit more. And that went the wrong way. Okay, that looks good. So now what I'm going to do is group all three of these together. So I'm holding down the Shift key on the keyboard. I'm selecting the top one, the middle one, and the bottom one. I'm going to arrange. I'm going down to group, and then I'm going to hit Command D or Control plus D, and now I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to arrange, going down to rotate, and I'm going to flip it horizontally. Yes, horizontally. And then I'm going to move this over and see if I can line this one up. Oops, I didn't get that one selected. So instead of working with this one, I'm just going to delete it or go back and start over again, since that's not exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and this time I'm going to see if I can select, ooh, all of those came undone. Okay, see if I can get this one there too. Okay, and I'm going back to group, and then I'm going to hit Command plus D or Control plus D, and now I'm going to flip it. Go to rotate and flip it horizontally. And this time I'm going to move it over, and we have our shapes here. Accidentally moved that, but I'm lining it up to the center there now anyway, so I'll move this guideline out of the way and see if I can get this to match up pretty well. So I am going to pull a guideline. I'm just clicking on the ruler and I'm going to pull one down. I want to make sure that my lines here kind of match up. I'm going to pull one from here and make sure that these kind of line up at the bottom, and see if I need to make any more changes real quick here. It looks like that one's a little low, and maybe it needed to be rotated a little bit more up. Let's see if I can move that up just a tad. And that looks a lot better. And if I want, I can pull out more and check all sides. If I were doing this for a client, that's what I would do. So I'm going down here, and that looks pretty good. So I'm going to keep it like this. And I'll move these out of the way. And then there's one more fun thing that we can do with this video. This is going to be part one of several videos, so I can show you what you can do with this. So right now, I'm just going to add a casting shadow. So if you created this through, if you approach Google Drawings through Google Docs, you may not be able to find this feature, but if you went through Google Drive or you went to googledrawings.com, you should be able to do this. So now that I have this, I'm going to select everything together. I'm holding down the Shift key and selecting both sides, and I'm going to group it together. And then the next step is to add a casting shadow. So if you look up here at the top, you can see these three dots, and it says more. You're going to click on those, or maybe you already see format options. I'm going to click on format options, and then I'm going down to where it says drop shadow, and I just clicked on the toggle over here, and I'm going to bring in the distance just a little bit and create kind of a shadow there. I like to make it a little bit lighter and feather it out a little bit right here, and you know, you can kind of play around like this. You can see that the one in the center, they kind of stack up on one another, and it got really dark right here. So another thing I can play around with is if I don't want it to stand out this much, I can either take the distance back a little bit, or I can just make it a little bit more transparent so it doesn't stand out quite as much. And I kind of like that right there. Awesome. So the next thing is, after I've used this pi fractions in sixths, what I'm going to do is actually take this and I'm going to duplicate it so I don't lose it. So I'm going to hit Command plus D or Control plus D. Oops, I didn't mean to do that one. So let me undo that. And it looks like I might need to group everything. No, okay, I got it. So sometimes if you grab one little piece, it shows that you can pull one piece out still. So I want to make sure I have the whole thing grouped. And then I'm going to hit Command plus D or Control plus D. Now I have the whole thing. I'm going to hit Command X to take the one off the top. And then I'm going to File right here, and I'm going to a new drawing. So here's my new untitled drawing, and I'm going to place that. So I'm clicking on the canvas, and I'm going to hit Command plus V to paste, V as in van. So now I have this, and if I want to, I could even save this or export it as a PNG so it keeps a transparent background. But I'm just going to keep this in my drawings because I'm going to use it later on, and I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. And you know, that's pretty good. So after I have it saved here, I'm going up to Untitled Drawing, and I'm going to type in white, Snowflake. You can make yours any color you want. And then I'm going to move that to my Google Drive. So, you know, I just talked about creating a folder for snowflakes in your Google folder. So I'm going to move it down here. I'm going to click on Move, and my folders pop up right here. So I'm going to the Snowflake folder. So I'm clicking on this and I'm moving it there. And that's it for this video. I hope it works well for you. Have fun with this and see what you create, and I will show you the next step after this. So congratulations on finishing part 1.